I'm Sister Mary Wangari Sebastian, Little Sisters of St. Joseph. I'm speaking about Laudato Si and Laudato Deum, a decade of faith in action as we celebrate 10 years. 10 years ago, Pope Francis gave us Laudato Si, a stirring call to care for our common home. Our sister Mother Earth, from its opening words, "Praise be to you," through our sister Mother Earth. This encyclical has inspired Catholics and people of all faiths to see creation as sacred and to hear the earth's lament. As our late Pope Francis warned, our world cries out from abuse, pleading that we take another course. Yet even as Laudato Si lamented how we have hurt and mistreated our common home, it gives us hope, for we know that things can change. In September 2023, Pope Francis renewed his urgent message in Laudato Deum. 8 years on, our responses have not been adequate, while the world in which we live in is collapsing and may be nearing the breaking point. He reminded us that care for our people and care for the earth are inseparable, as our care for one another and care for the earth are intimately bound together. He labeled climate change a tragic and striking example of structural sin that harms us all. These words underpin our hope and our duty. We are called to be instrument of God for the healing of creation. Fossil fuel divestment and Catholic action. Across the globe, Catholic dioceses, religious orders, and faith communities have taken concrete steps. Hundreds of institutions, including universities, organizations, and parishes, have divested from fossil fuels and shifted their investments to clean energy. This movement follows Francis' teaching that highly polluting fossil fuels need to be progressively replaced without delay. Even the Vatican's own finances avoid fossil investments. Pope Francis and his advisors have in special way urged Catholic organizations to divest, urging that we must lead by example in the energy transition. We also speak the truth to power. At the Global Climate Summit, our governments have begun to listen. COP26 in Glasgow in 2021 was the first time nations agreed to phase down unvetted coal and inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. COP28 in Dubai 2023 went further, signaling the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era and calling for a swift, just and equitable transition to renewables. These historic steps, born of persistent advocacy by faith groups and others, so that together we can bend the course of history. Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, FNPPT. Central to our advocacy must be phasing out fossil fuels altogether. Pope Francis has repeatedly emphasized the need to abandon fossil fuels such as oil, coal, gas, and adapt clean energy. Today, there is a concrete initiative for this purpose, the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. This citizens' treaty calls on governments to stop new oil and gas drilling, phase out existing fossil fuel infrastructure, and invest in a just transition for affected workers and communities. It specifically aligns with Laudato Si. In July 2024, Kenya Catholic Justice and Peace Department joined the treaty, saying this decision aligns with the teachings of the Catholic Church on care for our common home, as emphasized in Laudato Si. They called the FFNPT a vital step towards reducing carbon emissions, protecting vulnerable communities, and ensuring a sustainable future for all. By endorsing this treaty, Kenyan Catholics are living the gospel of creation care policy terms. As young people across Kenya have proclaimed the end to fossil fuel era, we urge the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, which has divested from fossil fuels, as well as joining the treaty. This sends a clear and resounding message that we are committed to bold action against the climate crisis. They reminded us that unrestrained fossil extraction impairs the delicate balance of our ecosystems and pointed out that transitioning to clean energy would create green jobs and protect the poor who are hardest hit. In sum, divestment and the FFNPT are two sides of the same vision, moving capital and policy away from destructive fuels forward towards life-giving just energy for all. The Kenyan leadership in care for creation. Here in Kenya, the Catholic community has given remarkable leadership in the last decade. Catholic University and others have been hubs of ecological advocacy and interfaith dialogue. One, through Laudato Si Generation Conference, which was done in 2019 in Nairobi, the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability, that is SINESA, together with the UNEP and WWF, hosted 270 young Catholics from Africa in a conference named Young People Caring for Our Common Home. This interfaith international gathering celebrated the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si and connected faith with biodiversity, indigenous wisdom, and sustainable agriculture. To season of creation of salvation annually, each September to October, Kenyan dioceses and Catholic institutions join the world's churches in prayer and action for creation. Communities have held rallies, liturgies, and cleanup projects under the season of creation. Also, the Franciscan Family Association gathers in their family day to celebrate season of creation. Local parishes and chaplaincies have led interfaith services that invoke Laudato Si themes and call for environmental justice. Interfaith Youth Forums at Catholic University. A cherished baby of JPIC Franciscan Africa. This fall, under the Catholic University Center for Social Justice and Ethics and partners like Laudato Si Movement Africa and JPIC Franciscans organized a dialogue with Muslims, Hindus, and Christians on ecology and peace on September 27, 2024. Sister Mary Francis Wangari Sebastian spoke at choir on peace and integral ecology, urging all faiths to come together in solidarity against climate change. She noted that oil and gas exploitation are driving droughts and displacement, and she rallied the audience to endorse the Fossil Fuel Treaty. Youth Advocacy and Treaty Endorsement 2024. In 2024, in partnership with Choir, hosted hundreds of students and faith leaders for a youth assembly on fossil fuels phase out. Their young activists declared that by joining the Fossil Fuel Treaty, we demonstrate our commitment to working collaboratively with the international community and that we will not fail the vulnerable. They invoked the late Pope Francis' words that we must not be the generation that failed to act when the signs of impending disaster were so evident. With the apostolic nuncio and the local officials present, they affirmed the treaty's global solidarity spirit, acknowledging that climate change knows no borders and demands a united response. Each of these efforts, campus, forums, interfaith services, and treaty campaigns have been inspired by Laudato Si and now Laudate Deum. They saw the living faith of Kenyan Catholics, convinced by the tradition that care for creation is care for our brothers and sisters. However, there are lessons from the climate summits. As we look forward, we must also heed the messages from international climate talks, that is COP26 in Glasgow, set the decade's ambitions limiting warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, and for the first time specifically called to face down unbated coal power and inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. COP27 in Egypt delivered a loss and damage fund for countries on the front lines of climate disasters, a breakthrough in climate justice, and COP28 in Dubai made history when its final text committed the world to transition away from fossil fuels. The beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era, these were hailed as turning points, the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era. Yet Pope Francis reminds us that promises must become deeds. Laudato Si warns that without immediate and courageous action to cut emissions and abandon fossil fuels, we risk surpassing safe climate thresholds. At this pace, Pope Francis wrote, we will surpass the maximum recommended limit of 1.5 degrees centigrade. Even if we do not reach this point of no return, the consequences would be disastrous. Faith-inspired changemakers must now translate summit goals into grassroots actions. 1. Press governments for binding commitments. Demand that polluters pay their share. Support renewable energy expansion. Ensure climate finance for the poor. Catholic social teaching calls us to solidarity, to the preferential option for the poor, and to the simple living. These values are our compass. A call to conversion in the next 10 years. Friends, as we mark 10 years of Laudato Si, we do so in hope and resolve. Pope Francis tells us that the Creator does not abandon us. He never forsakes his loving plan. We still have the ability to work together and the power to change. In the spirit of St. Francis of Assisi, let us welcome the cry of the earth as our own and act with mercy and courage. Let us dedicate the coming decade to conversion, compassion, and care for the glory of God and the good of